Do it.
And we are live. So great. We both have our copies here. We have some good folks from the community here with us at the library right now. So I guess the first thing that I wanted to ask you, like, how did this leave you after finishing it? Maybe not necessarily parallels to today, but just more emotionally.
For me,
Mm,
emotionally, I just felt very motivated for other people to read the book.
you're right.
I mean, it's just so relevant, and it's so repetitive. I mean, it's not, but we are.
Yeah.
We're so repetitive,
Our history, right?
right?
Does
So
seem to be a flat circle.
I closed the last page and I was like, why hasn't everyone read this? This is not a hard read. This can be done in an evening, and it tells everything you need to know about what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm. So I guess in the beginning of the book, it opens with an older George Takei giving a TED talk, but it immediately, kind of fades into his memories of the childhood. They're in their LA home, and there's a knock on the door. It's men in uniform, and so when we're going through this, it's all through the lens of a child. So it's hard to, but it's good practice to try to view those kind of stories without thinking you're an adult. Maybe imagining back to when you were a child and putting yourself in those shoes. But a lot of things influenced why our nation decided to do that, like the post Pearl Harbor panic and things like that. I did think it was kind of funny. It was called Executive Order 9066. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and when they wanted to kill the Jedi, that was Order 66. But so I can only help but wonder if that was an alliteration.
I would have never caught that.
But yeah.
I just kept thinking, yeah, executive order, sure enough.
And I think a lot of injustices actually pass through with those, with very little oversight these days. I'm not sure what to do about that.
I thought that was interesting, though, that since it was through his lens as a child, it's like the joyous and like the happiness that he still felt even in those times, but then him tying that to his dad and the shame that his parents felt.
Exactly. It wasn't really a story about Americans' freedoms being taken away, but what incarceration looks like in a normal setting.
Yeah.
Like it was normalized for these children, these people. They were there for so long. At the end of the book, we see that the court case goes through and people are able to get their citizenship back and all of that. But many of them didn't want to leave the camps. They, at that point, felt safe behind that barbed wire and not where they were from, their homes, you know?
That word normalize
Mm-hmm.
is so important because as a teacher, I see what has been normalized. And even though I teach older students, they're 16 through 18, I still have to give them context that it hasn't always been like it is right now. It's normalized to them.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw in the book, it didn't take long. He was there, 4 years?
Yeah.
Didn't take long. That was his world. It becomes their world.
Right. And what was incredibly striking was he would describe it as an adventure. Because again, we're through the eyes of this child, and for me, that's just really hard to get past.
Yes, and I bless his parents because I'm sure that often what kids say come directly from their parents, and I just, they were trying to pose it to him, I'm sure, as something besides what it was.
Right.
Yeah, it's a vacation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going on a vacation when they were in the train.
Yeah.
So from the beginning of this, as an English teacher, what could you take away and maybe help break down from the beginning transition from his home in Los Angeles all the way to Arkansas?
Well, I do know when we read something like Night, for instance, before we ever read it, and before they know what it's about, I will have my students write a journal entry on. If someone came to your door tonight, knocked on your door, and said, "You've got to leave, you've got to leave now, and we don't know if you will ever come back," what would you take with you? Right? And it always is amazing what they'll bring, and they're very thoughtful about it for the most part. You know, they really are. Some of them will say they'll bring their sibling, and they often want to bring the family pet. You know, and it's really, and that just reminded me of that. I thought, if I teach this or if I show this, because in my opinion, I've got to have them say the things. They don't need to hear me say it.
Mm-hmm.
They need to say it. And so I would do the same with them at the beginning of this book. What would you do? You know, how would you feel?
Because, yeah.
Empathize.
Humanize it. Like, bring it out of fiction or bring it into an immediate reality. For me, it was when Mrs. Takei was unpacking and she reveals the sewing machine, right? And you brought that, but the foresight that the mother had, and she knew what they were going into. You know, like, the kids are gonna need clothes. They're freaking kids. They grow.
And it was forbidden too.
Yeah, and it was forbidden. It was contraband. So, like, these small things that they had to risk just for a sense of, again, normalcy.
Yes, and I bless her again because this is my mojo. She had all the treats for them.
Yeah,
all the treats.
On the train ride, everything she could to keep the horrors at bay for the children.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the journaling, the asking the questions, like to your students whenever you do that, like a lot of people can't empathize unless they think about it happening to themselves. So that kind of opens it up to, oh, if it were me, you know, like it makes
right.
Because you don't make it relatable to something that they might go through or could go through. It's hard for.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Exactly. Oh man.
Unfortunately.
Things I'm not thinking of.
Relevance. Relevance. It's all about relevance. Yeah.
So my next question from here is, what surprised you the most in the setup of all of this, not necessarily the outcome? And again, the American build-up to the executive order, the transition from home and all of that. What was the most surprising?
Unfortunately, I'm old and have studied this and lived near one of the detention camps, and I wasn't surprised by much of it. I wish I was, but I wasn't really surprised by much of it. I was most, I guess you could call it a little bit of surprise, but more just intrigued by how the family adjusted to it. You know.
For me, the most surprising was that the children didn't really ever see this as a punishment until near the end or after the fact. They didn't really see it as, like, again, it's normalcy. And that was surprising to me. You had a comment?
Oh, I was going to say, I think the parallels to me of, like, even now, how normalized, you know, people napping people off the streets. It's very normalized, you know, even though we try to pretend like it's not. I mean, it's still happening right now. And, like, that to me is, like, very eye-opening.
Yo.
I think something that really surprised me was going into it. I read a bit about the book, about like its background and publication and conceptualization. And one thing that really surprised me was the tone it took. I understood that it would be like told through the lens of a child, but I thought it would. I often like saw myself asking myself like and drawing parallels between this graphic novel and Mouse, which I know a lot of people have really been thinking about recently, and because it's also faced a lot of challenges and bans similarly to this book. But that book takes a lot darker and grittier of a tone.
It does.
But this one didn't really have that, which is what really surprised me, because I was getting into like, okay, this is going to be about World War II and Japanese internment camps, but it still was able to really capture a lot of the joy of childhood within surreal war system.
And even how that joy was even possible in a place like that.
And ultimately, that is why I decided that we should read this for our final book of the year. Is number one, I think the graphic novel format makes it really accessible for people, and people that maybe wouldn't go to a book club for a full novel might come and join in for a graphic novel. But ultimately, if we're looking at this as a total history, I think it is really easy when we discuss time periods like this and events like this that are so horrific and so very understandably jarring. I think it is really important that we also look at them and understand that in those moments, people still had to go to work. They still read books to their kids. They still had to find a way to eat and put clothes on their back. There was still that sense of normalcy that is unfortunately just kind of how it has to be. People still have to live. And I think Mouse is a phenomenal series. It really is. And it does focus on their everyday lives. But I think what was so interesting to me about this is the fact that it's everyday lives from kids. And now I think, unfortunately, in the next couple decades, we're going to see a lot of people growing up having a lot of trauma about what's going on now. And I think this is an interesting kind of way for us to try to conceptualize what is happening now, but realize that this is just life for people at this time. And going forward in 20 years, kids that are growing up now, this is their life in this time. And try to see, okay, well, how did this impact him long term? And what does that do to someone growing up? And so, yeah, I thought it was really important that we see just kind of the normalcy and the mundane nature, I suppose, of life, even in the face of something so absolutely wild, right?
You know, on that note, so back to your earlier statement, Miss Laurie, you've been here a while, you've seen a lot, and, you know, not much of this really surprised you. So then, seeing this story through the eyes of a child, what was the emotional weight?
So, one of my very first memories of my life is being about 3 and sitting and rocking with my mother, and she fell asleep, and our TV was on, and it went to the news, 10 o'clock news, and I thought the Vietnam Army men could come through the TV and get me. They were showing this horrific battle, and that traumatized me, just that. That was on my TV. I can't imagine these children that went through this, but I also see the trauma that kids go through every darn day living in our country. I mean, I could tell you horror stories that my students have gone through, and we live in a very peaceful, very tiny, small community who we all support each other. They've gone through some horrific things. And so maybe that's why I'm not surprised, but I love that the author didn't show all just that. Like your previous speaker said, he showed the joy of childhood, that it remains, you know, and that was a huge takeaway for me, is kids still need to be kids. They find a way to play, you know, they find a way to be. And also, I don't know if you guys realize how many times he said, I didn't count, but I know more than once, he said, my mother, like I'm paraphrasing, the most important thing to my mother were us children. You know, that's all my mother focused on was the children. And what a blessing to have that kind of mother, because I know a lot of kids right now who don't have that. They're alone.
That also reminds me, towards the end, Mrs. Takei would not leave back for LA unless she knew it was safe. And so Mr. Takei is, well, okay, what if I just go there first, check it out? And she's like, yeah.
Wow.
You know?
She chose being interred in an internment camp instead of going home. Yeah.
So how effective do you think that tool was, telling this story through the lens of a child versus telling it through the lens of an adult?
Me personally, I think I love the objective. I mean, he was just objective, more or less. And there were moments, I'll say, and this is probably the political me, there were moments where I was like, oh, don't make it look too good. That was in my brain. Like, no, I want everybody to know how bad this was.
Yeah. But see, that's Yeah, thankfully. It's a wave.
But I am almost on the other end where I think some of the mundane things that they do in this story and some of the like everyday life kind of things that they do almost makes the horror of what is going on even more creepy. It's like when you're watching a horror movie and like everything is normal, but like one thing is just a little off, and it really stands out because it's that one thing. I almost think because of that, it's, at least for me, that contrast, that juxtaposition between normal child and then, oh, but wait, there's barbed wire surrounding my home, right? That is very jarring.
Yeah.
Great point.
Right, we'll move on. So, I can't speak to this, I haven't been, but what would it do to a person that grows up, they spend their life, their childhood in a prison just to come back out into the real world? Especially when you come out to Skid Row from a quiet countryside with, it's just weird. I don't know how I could have reacted to that as a child. I don't know how anybody could be expected to adapt efficiently or completely back into society after something like that. And to expect children to do that is wild to me.
Plus, at the time, I mean, we have a lot of knowledge of trauma now.
Yeah, we do.
But they didn't.
No.
They just,
Children are
children are
resilient.
resilient. That's what they would say.
They're made of rubber.
They'll bounce. Oh, man. So my next question would be about patriotism versus obedience.
Oof.
Right? Family loved America, but the family was locked up anyway by America. What do you think this book suggested the difference was between loving our country and then obeying our government? Like, essentially, what are the duties of patriotism? And can you be a patriot while, I guess, disobeying orders? Or, I'm not sure the right word.
I think you have.
Well, I think you probably
Yeah,
have
same.
I think you have to be a real patriot. You
Mm.
have to realize, oh wow, this order isn't doing what America is. So to be American, I need to be against it. I need
Right.
to do what's right.
But isn't there like a famous quote of like patriotism is like always loving your country and loving your government when it deserves to, or something like that?
Something
Yeah.
like that,
Like,
I'm sure.
you're gonna-
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to.
For me,
I
we're...
think it's,
No.
I think it's also a part that really was effective for me was when the author was praising the heroism of both sides of when the questions were answered.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that even those who challenged the questions and resisted the questions, who were thrown into prison,
Right.
were just as heroic as the people who were inevitably honored, like the Prison of Little Honor or something like that. I'm not too sure.
And you're referring to the question 47 and 48, like, are you loyal to, and then like, would you serve in combat or something?
Yeah.
And it went to children and women too. At the time, women didn't serve.
Yes, and
Yeah.
the disorientation that that question must have caused, and how he went to praise both sides of that, even though people wanted to go
And
into
the mental
that.
gymnastics
Yes.
you have to be doing when
That was
asked
the
questions
point.
like that. Because you know there's a right answer, right? But at the
But
same
whatever you say, it's
But if
well,
you
but
say
it's
you-
whoever's giving you that test is who's deciding what that answer is. That's correct. Yeah,
And
that's
so I
wild.
think that really speaks to the role of obedience and patriotism, especially within this completely traumatizing and very nuanced situation.
Yeah, I
Which
agree.
is that you can, you don't always have to necessarily be obedient to be patriotic.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's mainly wonder because I remember when I became a citizen, there was actually a question in the citizenship about, okay, like, if we go to war with your country, you're aligning with us, right? Something along those
Huh.
lines.
Okay.
And it's like,
Ooh.
well, I already spent like $1 bazillion million to go through this process.
Absolutely.
What do you think my answer is?
Absolutely. I
Oh.
have.
Is that no?
I mean, I have friends that spent 10 years and over 30 grand to become a citizen here
That's
the
craziness.
quote right way, right?
Yeah.
And they had children and a dog and a house, and the questionnaire was still like, yeah, but are you invested in our country?
Yeah.
Are you though? And yeah, I think that's a very interesting line to look at of what is patriotic. And ultimately, I think if you go back, way back to the founding, right? What is patriotic is being able to say that you disagree.
Mm-hmm.
At the core of everything, having the freedom to say, I don't agree with that, is patriotic. Now, I think it's very different if you are, say, in the military, which I don't have that perspective. I know you do, but, you know, coming out with the whole, do you follow an order if you believe
Only
it?
legal ones.
Yeah, but then, how do you know if it's legal or not?
Well, you know,
In
they
the
spend
moment.
a lot of time going over that in basic,
Right.
and then in combat training, and then
Yeah.
in your job, and like this
Yeah,
isn't
but
like
now
a
it's
one and
not
done
new.
little
Yeah.
explainer. Like this is covered
Yeah, but
repeatedly.
Now the rhetoric, though,
The rhetoric has gotten
the
really
rhetoric is
crazy.
changing. It's saying, well,
It
how,
is.
how can an individual really know what's legal?
Well, and
Mm.
nowadays, right, where I think it's different if you are maybe back in World War II and someone's saying, shoot this person, and you are there, person to person. But now in war, we have someone hundreds of miles away sitting behind a computer operating a drone. How do you necessarily, in that instant, know what's going on? Do you know the whole picture, or do you just have to trust that the people giving the orders know the whole picture? You know, I think there's a lot of kind of weird gray zone, but ultimately you have your oath to the Constitution and not to a person.
And that's the priority.
Yeah, it has
The
to
Constitution.
be. Yeah.
Didn't this just happen?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we're talking.
It did.
I think we're referencing Scott.
Wow, it's almost like our book connects to modern current events.
I mean, there was someone who was told to kill them all,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and went ahead and shot the other two people who
Correct.
were hanging on for life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wild. We live in weird times, but I think one of the things that this book in particular shows you is that everything is cyclical, right? Everything is precedented.
Mm-hmm.
And so we learn from it. We have to.
So can a government act unjustly while the nation still has moral worth? And can you maintain that moral worth while you are actively, you know, acting against
To
that?
be determined.
TBD.
That was a
We'll
very
get back to you.
diplomatic answer. I think
Oh
that's valid.
man. So at what point does compliance become complicity and complacency?
Yeah.
Then,
Well, and especially if you're a kid.
because that was one of the main towards the end, that was one of the main points of contention between the adult residents of the camps, at least as explained through the graphic novel. A lot of individuals, there was infighting over, you know, I did nothing but say no on these two questions, and now I'm a radicalized, you know, I am the enemy of the state, and, you know, jobs are taken away, and all of this animosity. But were those people wrong? The compliant ones that, you know, were... It's so many moral issues that happen inside of these places and outside of these places, and where is the moral high ground, and how do you decide what that is in that moment?
I think that's above pretty much everyone's pay grade, unfortunately.
Definitely
I think
above my
that
pay
is a
grade.
philosophical question for the ages.
But I did think it was interesting that George, with his dad, you know, he even said, "How could you do this?
Yeah.
Implicit by just allowing." And then
The after dinner
like, looking at
combos.
himself now, back then, he's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, it still wasn't right for me to say that to my
Yeah.
dad." But,
Hindsight.
yeah, but even then, it's that.
I also really think during times of war, it's really easy for people to really gain a gauge on people's senses of morality and what is and what isn't right, because it's almost like they're pushed to their limits in times of war, which is definitely what this book, it's how it was introduced. You know, when with the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the declaration of war and the panic that ensued, it was almost like it was able to enable a type of racism that was already existing.
Oh yeah.
And just continue to enable it, exacerbate it to the extent that the Japanese Americans were held in internment camps against their will. And so while I can't really speak, nor do I really want to speak to morals in a larger, more generalized sense, I think during times of war, it's just very easy for people to become enabled in their own prejudices and biases.
Absolutely.
In times of panic as well.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Prey on fear.
That's actually the next section I have here is fear is a political weapon.
Very true.
And so you're, again, English teacher. I'm assuming literature is a huge part of your courses.
Yeah.
What other English works could you tie into this that, cover fear being used as a political weapon? I mean, I guess apart from the obvious 1984.
Yeah.
All of those.
Yes, but also we read Night,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of the propaganda spoken of in there.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have younger students, which I've had before, maybe early high school or late junior high, there's a great book called The Berlin Boxing Club.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a real boxing match that happened, but it's fictionalized around it. So much good discussion of fear as propaganda, and just amazing. There are a lot of good works out there, but most of them do have to do with World War II. A lot of them do, because it was so obvious.
And it kind of follows a ladder that fear is introduced, and then, suspicion is bred. That goes into, we dehumanize these people so that we don't feel bad about committing those acts. It's not a person anymore. That's an item. That's a thing. Now policy is written and suffering ensues. And everybody suffers, not just these victims, but the individuals. At some point, there's a reckoning.
As an English teacher, you can relate that one of the biggest soapboxes I personally will stand on is that the words we use matter, right? That the way we refer to things is incredibly important because it shapes how you view the things around you. And so I could definitely see where, as fear incites this kind of political violence, if you're teaching this in a book, I could really see where that would be something that you would focus on with students, is how they're using their language to other or to manipulate or to inflame. Because I think people don't necessarily put as much thought to the words that they take in and how they've been chosen. Every single word that you read was chosen. So how do those words impact you?
Yes, and we had that exact conversation constantly.
Yeah.
Did he really mean that? They'll say, well, did that, especially when we're talking symbolism and such, they'll say, yeah, but did he really, usually a male author, did he really mean that? Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. Every word is chosen. But you know what is interesting to me is the students understand this where social media is concerned. They talk about rage bait all the time.
Do they?
And not just in class, but in their own conversations. They forget you're in there when you're a teacher. When they're having conversations, you're a piece of furniture. And then they'll say, how did you know that? I'm like, well, you kind of said it right in front of me. But
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah, but they talk about rage bait.
Yeah.
That's a very real problem that we have today. I mean, I have to limit my news exposure in the mornings now. Otherwise, the days just, forget that.
Right? And then you have to go on high blood pressure medicine.
I'm only 38. It's too early for that.
Yeah, I think some of my high school kids need it.
And so I know you said you're teaching high school. Do you think students, I know you were saying rage bait on the internet. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people get their news now, is social media, right? Do you see your students necessarily, not so much with the rage bait, but do you think they have an understanding of how people in headlines or tweets utilize very specific word choice to influence your perception of something? For example, I know what was big in the news recently with all of the Epstein case files, right, is that they slept with young women. Is the headline, when it's you raped a child. Sorry, that's what it is. And those words matter. And by saying that you slept with a young woman, you are diminishing what that act was, right? I'm just curious from a teacher's perspective, when you're looking at these students, do you think that they have a perception of, what those words were very specifically chosen and what those are, I guess, those choices are doing?
Personally, this is what I see. I don't think that they are that mature just to pull up social media and think, wow, that's not a woman, that's a child. But I do know this. All you have to do is question them, and they understand immediately. And then they get the big bulb, where you see the light bulb over their head. All I have to say to them, and I really am a proponent, especially where I live, because I live in a deeply conservative part of our country and very isolated. We're an hour from a town with a Walmart. I mean, that's how isolated we are. And it's 1,000 people, and they live with those 1,000 people, so it's very isolated. All I have to, so I always make sure they're saying it, not me, right? I want them to say it. And all I have to say is, why do you think they chose that word? That's interesting. Did you read, Miss Big, that so-and-so said this? I said, what'd they say? Why do you think they said it that way? And they come out with it. And then you go, oh, yeah, interesting. They personally can't go home and say, Miss Bigler told me that.
Right. I mean, do you think that's something, I guess, how would you take that approach to the rest of our country, too? Because I think being taught to question things is a skill in and of itself.
I do it personally with my friends here.
Yeah,
I'll say, oh, that's so interesting. Where did you get that information?
Nice.
That stops most anyone in their tracks, because they either have to say, well, off of so-and-so website that's a bunch of junk and they know it, or they say they don't know and then they shut up, or, whatever but if they say, well, I got that off of, some credible news source, I'll be like, man, I gotta go read about that. And I'm open to what they're saying. But, typically it's something that's like, I'll go, oh, no wonder I haven't seen that. I don't look at that website.
But I do really like that, because it doesn't just shut the conversation down. It opens up an opportunity for response and an opportunity for education. I think that's brilliant.
I'm wrong. As much as anybody else, I'm wrong. So if they got something that I haven't seen, I do want to know, where did you get that?
Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Once in a very blue moon. Will it be something that's pretty credible? And I'm only going to say that when it's something that's like, come on.
Yeah.
People, they're not eating the dogs and cats.
I wonder that. No.
There's a song about it.
There's a whole song.
Or, you say, how many people have you seen, eating dogs and cats? Oh, that's interesting. How many people do you know that this has happened to? Whatever it is that they're talking about. Yeah, question them, but not in a threatening way.
Yeah, never in a threatening way. That's no way to keep a conversation open or.
But make them source themselves.
Okay, I like that.
Even your friends.
So back into using fear as a weapon, how can you see the same fear machinery working in today's society, especially coming from a very rural and isolated location? Is that taking place where you're from now? It certainly is here.
It works. It works here. It works here. If you live in an isolated place and you haven't been outside of that place very much or at all, fear works, because what is fear? The unknown. And you don't know. You don't know people.
Right.
Fear works beautifully out here. And that's why now things are changing right now in people's perception, but it's only because the fear has gotten so ridiculous and so widespread, and so that now they're going, wait, I haven't seen that, But it works. It works on isolated communities for sure.
Even larger communities.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Now, that brings me to the scene in the book where young George is out of the camp. He's back in school, but the teacher is very clearly anti-Japanese. And we have that scene, a traumatizing scene for a kid, to overhear a teacher's statement. Are you able to comment on that any? Or?
Well, just from my own personal experience, we've had it in our schools here with races. I mean, I've had it as much as last year where, everyone has a teacher shortage. We will have it the worst because we are isolated. Who wants to come here, right? Unless you have a particular reason. and we're very isolated. We have brought teachers out of retirement. We've brought people who aren't teachers. We're doing whatever we can to try to get these kids educated. And a teacher that came out of retirement is clearly racist, clearly, makes no bones about it.
So how can we combat that?
How do we fight it? All I know is, like I said, personal experience. Kids feel comfortable enough to me, they come and tell me. You know, and we have to be careful as educators because we're like parents. They'll pit each other. They'll pit teachers against teachers. So, you know, I have to make sure that this is really happening and they're not just needing some attention or sympathy from me. But when I ask enough questions to make sure this has really happened, or get, you know, the full 360 on it. And I mean, sorry, I have to go straight to administration. You know, I have to. So I go to administration and I definitely have to talk with the student. I say to them, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, there's no education for educators on this. I say to them, I see what you went through. I think if I were you, I would feel very threatened like you do. You know, I understand how you feel. You know you're always safe in my room. If you need to decompress by coming in here, you may. I can't let you rant about another teacher in front of other kids, but if you need to talk to me about it, you can.
Right.
In the meantime, do you mind if I talk to some other adults about this?
And that's awesome. And that still gives the power to the child in a way.
Yeah. And it keeps the boundaries. It's not giving them permission to start ranting on me about something or any teacher about something.
Mm-hmm.
But it's rough. It's rough. Those are rough days. Those are the days you come home with a headache.
Yeah, I bet.
Because it's rough. And your administration matters too.
I imagine it
Whether
would.
they're brave enough. We recently had a blackface posted on our school website.
Woof.
Of a little child who I know their intention was not bad. It was a wax museum, and they were trying to, you know, pick a hero that was of a different color, but blackface of that child, we really let that kid down, you know, by letting it be on there. So anyway, I could go on forever about that because that is part of my mission in my life. Being out here is to open eyeballs. So yeah.
Thank you.
Without being a target.
My eyeballs, perfect.
How do you keep your energies being like in the front lines of this battle or isolated? How do you keep yourself motivated and energized to not lose hope and keep at it?
Were you able to hear that question okay?
I heard the first part of it, but not the
So
last.
how are you able to keep yourself energized and motivated through these things so that you don't lose focus on them? Or
Yeah, and especially if your spirit is not crushed. when
yeah,
it's
and to
surrounded
maintain your spiritual strength. Like,
That's easy for me. Have you seen my grandchildren?
aha.
Make it better for them.
My grandchildren are all different colors, all different sizes, all different shapes. They're precious to me, and all I have to do is say, when I'm gone, what's going to happen? You know, that's easy. That's the easiest answer today, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. See, I feel motivated right now.
Good. So I guess that would bring us into the part of George Takei's story where they're still in the camp, but people are starting to protest their treatment, how long this has been. I have this labeled as silent survival and shame. Why do you think survivors often choose silence?
Is that for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You know, I'm always back to my own personal experience. Bullying in schools is similar to what we see in these situations. And everyone's goal when you've got a bully is to go under the radar and to get the focus off of yourself. And it might at the time seem easier to be silent and shut down. And it's hard to believe when you're in those situations, or this is what I see with my students, it's hard to believe that speaking out will actually improve your situation. So that's just my opinion. I think they shut down and they stay silent, trying to get the attention, maybe the tension will go away from me, because it's no different than bullying.
Truly.
And shame. I mean, they talk about shame.
They talk about shame a
Yes.
lot.
And it's like the shame, and it's so sad that it's true though. Victims feel a lot of shame, and a lot of time, you're a
Yes.
victim. It's not your fault, but the human, psyche.
Well, and I think it's interesting that we have this time period in which they are being made to feel shame for, in some cases, what is, a nationality that they don't have a connection to anymore. I mean, some of the characters in this book were people that were born in the United States. They said, I've never even been there.
I mean, hell, the kids were playing Americans versus the Japanese instead of, cops and robbers.
Yeah, and so it is interesting because it's not even necessarily real differences, it's perceived differences.
Right.
Yeah.
And a
I
perceived
can't
difference
give the
might not even be a
percentage.
difference.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, and a perceived difference might not actually even be a difference.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Back to equating it to bullying. Do you know how many times, and there is a percent for this, but I know how many times people give wrong percents. So I won't give the percent, but it's a large number of times when bullies are brought into the office at a school or whatever, the victim is the one who gets in trouble.
Yep.
Or the victim gets in trouble with the bully. But usually the victim, because the bully's good at this, makes it look so, victim shaming is just part of it that is horrific. Right? I think we all instinctually know that.
Yeah.
We know that. We could get blamed for this.
And I think in some ways in that form, silence is a form of just protecting themselves.
Shut
it's
down.
a way for them to take agency over a situation that they have lost agency in,
Yes. We see that with rape victims.
Yes.
And that trauma carries on. I mean, it turns into generational trauma.
Yes.
And even when those stories are never told, it's still there. People still experience these things, at least, the repercussions of the trauma.
Yes, and often repeat. Victims become victims. They remain victims. It's a horrible cycle.
But, the story didn't necessarily end on a bad note. It actually ended incredibly positive. We got to follow Mr. Takei through his early career, through his schooling, to his theatrical performances all the way into Star Trek. And now he uses this platform to talk about this. I remember towards the end, he was shocked that when he tried to find more about what he went through as a kid, there was nothing there. There was nothing for him. That brings me back to just a few years ago, and it was a freaking HBO show, Watchmen, but I had no idea about the Tulsa firebombing. None.
I was born in Tulsa, man. That shocks me, and I know people didn't know about it. My dad was a policeman in Tulsa in the 60s, and they still were segregating people because of that. And he talked about it. But then they called them the race riots instead of the Tulsa slaughter.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what it was.
The words we use matter.
Back to the words we use matter.
My soapbox.
Thank you.
The words we use matter.
So true. Isn't that something?
So,
yes. Yeah.
No, please. I'm just following a PowerPoint. You're being original.
No, the Tulsa race riots, the so-called race riots. I just was shocked how many people didn't know about that. But I also was shocked when I was 17 in high school in my little town, not this little town, but a different little town. And I mentioned to a teacher, they asked for an analogy, and I said, well, it's like when we put the Japanese Americans into camps. She came unglued at me. How dare I lie to her? She had never heard of that. That was the most ridiculous thing. It was a conspiracy that I was making up. I mean, I got called out big time, and I just shut down and didn't argue with her. She was my teacher. But went home and checked it out, with my parents and whatnot. And yes, I knew I was right about that, dang it. And then, yeah, but she either refused to know about it or didn't know about it. Amazing to me.
Well, I mean, and I guess I can understand you have this idea of your country, this idea of ourselves as a person, and we all want to be a good person, right? And then to have to reconcile like those facts with our beliefs. You know, I can understand running away from that.
Yeah. And, you know, she really thought I hated my country. Yeah, how dare you say something like that about our country? You're right. Yeah.
And you know, we're seeing that in the media now too, or
Yes.
with the White House press secretary and reporters just, you know, doing their job.
I mean, obviously this is very different, but about a decade ago, I used to live in South Korea, and
Wow.
South Korea, in fairness, a lot of what they have in terms of their modern infrastructure, they claim they owe to America, right? They came in during the war and you really saved us. And so they, probably not now, but they used to have a great perspective of us. And when people would hear that I was American, like the first thing that they would tell me was, wow, America's the best country on earth, like without even a second thought. And my response would always be, I mean, yeah, like we have things to work on, but yeah, like objectively, it is a great place. I'm lucky to have been born there. And the response was always, that is so unpatriotic of you. How are you like, what do you mean it's not the best? And my response would always be, I think the most patriotic thing I could do as an American is say what I would change about my country. Honestly, like I don't believe there's anything in this country that should be above discussion. And so I think it is interesting because you do have objectively a great country, but that I think by looking through rose-tinted glasses, by not acknowledging things that you would change and things that you believe aren't where they should be, that's not being proud of your country. It's not patriotism.
Especially a country that was just born from rebellion.
Ignoring. Yeah, exactly. And so I kind of made that my purpose of like, let's talk about America. Like, what can we do better? But still acknowledging, I think both exists, right? I am lucky to have been born here. I have been given a really great life here. As a middle-class white girl, I have had a great life here. However, there are absolutely things I would change and things that I think need to change. And I don't think that those two conflicting views make me unpatriotic.
I think it actually shows that you love your country, because otherwise
Thank you,
if
yeah.
you're just like, oh, this is going sideways,
Yeah.
I don't care, or
Right.
just following that, you don't really love sense of improvement or
Yeah.
so, yeah,
I would
you just
really
love your country. The other ones
I do, thank you.
And at the end here, I mean, George Takei's father would agree with all of us. When, you know, they're after dinner conversations and George Takei's asking about this, and his father is saying, you know, we're still the best democracy in the world, and it's because we're a people's democracy, you know. It is representative of us individually, or at least it's supposed to be.
No, I think his perception of they just made a bad choice, right? Like they made a bad decision. It was the wrong decision, but it still is the right way.
What gutted me is,
But how do we move on from this, and how do we be better than this?
the apology, Reagan's apology. What gutted me is that George's father passed in '79 and wasn't able to get to see that. But what struck me is that we did apologize, and I'm not sure we would do that in today's administration.
No, I don't think I'm sure either.
You have to admit something's wrong to apologize, right?
Yeah.
And that was Reagan.
I mean, I think there is something to be said for apologies don't fix, but they still matter, right? And I do think it's really important that he mentioned that towards the end of the book of we've acknowledged that this was not correct, right? And that hopefully we've learned from that.
But we haven't, because, you know, in the 50s, we had Operation Wetback. From there, we had the cancellation of immigration from all those countries, and then today, Operation Wetback 2.0.
Yeah.
Or to kind of cycle back also, I don't know if anyone ever has seen it, but if you want to see something powerful, go and watch the recordings of the Senate hearings where the Tulsa Massacre survivors spoke. Yeah. And there were 4 or 5 of them, I believe, and they were in their 90s. I think the last one just passed. But this was in the last 10 years. And they spoke and they told their stories, and it's absolutely gripping. They still voted not to give them reparations. You know, their lives had been so altered. One woman who was on her way to college ended up cleaning houses for the rest of her life. You know, just incredible stories. And we didn't do anything really but listen to it and go, oh, that's bad. You know. So yeah. But go watch those.
I will.
They are such moving stories. And if you ever have a chance, anyone, to go to Greenwood District in Tulsa, they have a beautiful center there that has all the stories, and it's a beautiful block of history. It's very powerful.
Well, I guess that just kind of wraps it up today. We're seeing all these parallels from what George saw. Even, I wouldn't necessarily call them camps, but large centers for internment or transition. What conditions then made those camps possible? And what can we do to stop that from completing its full circle that we're seeing about to happen here? I mean, my answer would be exposure and education.
I like that answer.
What was that camp? The crocodile?
Oh, yeah.
Alligator or Alcatraz. Yeah.
That's closed, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. But some of those people were moved, and there's no records as to where.
But then, you know, they're just, yeah.
So that's another problem to fix, but yeah.
Right.
To your point, exposure. Because if that hadn't been exposed, I mean, yes, it still isn't great because they still got moved, but at least that one camp.
Absolutely. I think part of the hard part is making education not seem like preaching.
Right.
People don't want to sit there and have someone
at.
preach at them about things. People want to be engaged and they want to learn, but they don't want to feel spoken down to. And I think that's one of the things we have to kind of surmount when it comes to this, is how do we get that information out in a way that doesn't feel preachy?
Then what safeguards would actually prevent this from happening again, instead of just like traditions that we're going to hope hold?
Meaningful legislation?
Considering they just got the budget to build a bunch of camps.
Yeah.
Call your Congress people, folks.
And
I mean, there's a lot of negative about social media, but the fact that we all have a camera in our hand at all times is helpful. Because anytime I start feeling complacent, all I have to do is go find out, are they still disappearing people? So many videos on the internet. Watch a couple and you're back in, okay, I gotta get back in it. So, we can educate them that just watching it. We don't have to say a word. This happened.
Kind of like what Eisenhower said when he was leaving office, film everything, because there's going to come a day when they're going to deny this. Or try to. He had choicer language, but yeah.
What a wise man.
Yeah, but did we listen?
No.
I guess we do film everything now, but
That's true.
for good or for evil.
I film for evil.
My thought is, like in education, meet people where they are.
Right.
You meet the student where they are. When we're out and we're having dialogue, meet the person where they are. And if you can help move them just even a step better, but meet them where they are. This is where they are. There's a great saying that says, let them. There's a new book out by Mel Robbins who does a podcast I listen to sometimes. It's just let them be where they are. because that takes down the resistance.
Mhm.
Let them be. And then, but you show them where you are. And hopefully they'll come to where you are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I'm going to go where someone else is. Maybe I'm going to go, you know, where you are, with, you know, who has more knowledge or whatever. And just, you know, go meet people where they are.
I think
Don't talk from above them.
I think that's a
Definitely.
good call out because sometimes we get so nitpicky on certain like aspects of a word that somebody chose when from where they grew up instead of what they're trying to say.
Yes.
If you pick on that, you never get to have the conversation about, oh, why did you even choose that word? That's an interesting word choice. Instead of like, don't use that word. You know, it's back to words matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's meeting them where they are, and then also saying, oh, that's an interesting word choice. Why would you use that?
Right.
Well, and to bring it
Yes.
to the organization that we're working with and what we do is all of our events that we've done partner with local organizations that are already doing good work.
Mm-hmm.
And so our goal is, what do you care about? Where are you currently focusing your energy, and how can we help you do something with that? Right? Meeting people where they are is incredibly important. And everyone...
How else are you going to build rapport?
Well, and everyone has things that they deeply care about, right? My sister is type 1 diabetic. I care deeply about our healthcare system because I've seen the toll it's taken on her, right? That is not someone else's focus, but both of us can do good things if we are provided the right space and the right resources and the right community to do them in. And so I think when you're telling people to meet them where they're at, I think that is incredibly important. Because not only does it enable people to feel safe in where they are, but it enables people to kind of see what they have to offer for other people too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that we
It gives me a lot of peace.
Yes.
Sorry. It just does. It gives me a lot of peace being where I am and talking to some people that you'd be shocked by their beliefs. Maybe you wouldn't, but sometimes I am. But you meet them there, you know. You meet them there. Why do you believe that? What do you believe? What does that word mean to you? When you use that word, what does that mean to you? You know, it's so important.
Ask questions and, you know, ask them sincerely.
And really listen.
Yeah. So, like, now that we all, like, know this history, like, does that give us certain responsibilities in our society today? I think it does, too. All right. Well, this book isn't about what America was. It's about what fear can make any country become if people stop paying attention. So each month, you know, we'll have a different book. This is our last one of the year, but January, we'll do another one.
We are reading The Authoritarians by Bob Altmeyer. It was published online for free. There's a PDF you can download, an ebook you can download, or you can purchase a copy, I think, for like $7. But he was a professor and he put it out for free because he wanted to make it as accessible as possible.
Now, who is that author again?
Bob Altmeyer.
Bob Altmeyer.
Unfortunately passed in 2023, so I will not be able to get him as our guest speaker. But last month we did have the author, so I'm trying to like get people that have a connection. So I'm digging around. I'm on the LinkedIn and like, you know, I'm finding people, but it's going to be really good. And I thank you very much for joining us and giving us a really interesting perspective from someone in public education now that is seeing how things affect kids currently in this climate. And yeah, I really appreciate you jumping in last minute and being here with us.
Me too.
Oh, I've enjoyed it. I love the conversation. If I crave anything, that's what I crave. So thank you.
Join our live streams every month. Come watch us.
We'll definitely send you a link for next month's or January's live stream to view. Now, would you have anything that you'd like to leave us on?
Not other than probably this, and this may be a presumption that's incorrect, but I know some of my friends who live outside and are in different bubbles. Don't give up on people who are living a different area, different lifestyle, a different belief system. Don't give up on them because, you know, most red Republicans are good people. Most blue Democrats are good people. It's just, you know, we've got a lot more alike than you think. People say, how can I live out here like this? I love it. I love it. I've got beautiful friends who have completely different takes on the world than I have. And I will love them, and they, believe it or not, start seeing. They start seeing. So don't give up on people.
Good to go. Well, Lori, I thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your awesome conversation. This is great. So,
Thank you.
until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
So we're gonna